It doesn't start with a vision, a voice, or an angel descending from the heavens. It starts with pain, a deep soul-cracking pain that you can't explain in words. Like you were born into a battlefield with no map and no memory of how you got here. You look around at the world and wonder why everything feels heavier for you than it does for others. You feel things more deeply. You see things others ignore. Even as a child, you noticed the shadows that no one else would talk about. You've always sensed there was more going on beneath the surface. And one day you wake up and realize it wasn't just your imagination. You were chosen for battle not in the physical world, but in the invisible one. You may not know it yet, but you've been fighting for a long time. Oh, in your mind, in your heart, in your sleep. You've battled anxiety, depression, confusion, and deep existential dread. You felt like an alien in your own life, like you were born with a mission but forgot what it was. And that's the first sign. Spirit realm warriors often begin their journey in the dark. The darkness isn't the end, it's the initiation. It's the proving ground. Because only those who've been to the depths can rise into the heights with clarity and power. If you've been through hell and made it out with compassion still intact, you're not weak. You're ready. There's a reason your life has never felt normal. You've been marked by the spirit world. Not in a way that makes you superior. This isn't about ego, but in a way that makes you different. You carry codes in your soul that others can't see. You're tuned into frequencies that others dismiss. You dream of battles, feel unseen presences, experience synchronicities so precise they make your skin crawl. People tell you you're too intense, too sensitive, too deep. But what if those were actually your gifts? What if those traits are evidence that you are wired to sense the invisible war that's always been raging beneath the surface of this world?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt like you were being watched? Not by a person, but by something beyond this dimension? Not in a paranoid way, but in a way that made you feel like your life was being observed, guided, or even tested. That's because it is. Spirit realm warriors live under spiritual surveillance. The light watches you because you are being prepared. The dark watches you because you are a threat. Every choice you make carries weight. Every thought you think has influence. You are not just living a life, you are commanding energy. And that's why your life has never been small, even when it looked that way on the surface. People think spiritual power comes from rituals and robes. But real spiritual power is forged in the quiet moments when no one is watching. When your ego is screaming but you choose stillness. When your heart is broken but you choose love. When you feel lost but you keep walking anyway. That's what makes you a warrior. Not your strength, but your surrender. Not your dominance, but your devotion. And that devotion is what draws the attention of higher realms. Because when a soul chooses truth over comfort, integrity over popularity, and purpose over pleasure, the spirit world takes notice. You become an agent of change, a vessel for divine disruption. Another sign you're a spirit realm warrior is that you've always carried a sense of urgency, like time is running out. Like there's something you're supposed to do, but you can't quite remember what it is. That's not anxiety. That's your soul remembering its mission. Spirit warriors come here with assignments. Some of us are grid holders, some are healers, some are truth tellers, some are protectors. But all of us are here to shift the frequency of this realm. And we can't do that if we're asleep. So life shakes us. It wakes us. It breaks us open so we can remember. You've probably noticed that you don't fit into most systems. School felt shallow. Work felt meaningless. Religion felt limiting. You questioned everything. You saw through the programming. And that's not rebellion, it's remembrance. Spirit realm warriors are allergic to false authority. We don't follow blindly. We don't obey out of fear. We seek the source, not the structure. We crave the truth, even when it hurts. And because of that, we often walk alone. But solitude is not punishment, it's preparation. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the energy shift? Have you ever known someone's intentions before they spoke? Have you ever had dreams that came true or felt another person's pain in your own body? That's not coincidence. That's spiritual intelligence. You are multidimensional. Your awareness extends beyond the five senses. And the more you accept that, the more your gifts will activate. But be warned, gifts come with responsibility. The more power you hold, the more integrity is required. The spirit realm doesn't care about your image, it cares about your essence. One of the clearest signs you're a warrior in the spirit realm is that you've been relentlessly attacked mentally, emotionally, physically, energetically. The enemy doesn't waste ammunition. It only targets threats. If you've been through more than most, it's because you carry more than most. You are a frequency disruptor, a timeline shifter, a generational curse breaker. And every time you rise, you send shock waves through the ether. That's why they try to keep you down. Not because you're weak, but because you're powerful. And if you ever fully woke up to that power, the game would change forever. So let me ask you this, what would happen if you stopped hiding? If you stopped dimming? If you stopped apologizing for who you are? Most people are terrified of their own light. But spirit realm warriors don't have that luxury. We're not here to be liked. We're here to be light. And that means owning the fullness of our being, even if it makes others uncomfortable, especially if it makes systems tremble. Because the truth is, you weren't sent here to fit in. You were sent here to dismantle illusions. You've probably felt the call before. A whisper in your soul, a nudge in your gut, or a pull towards something greater. Maybe you've ignored it. Maybe you've denied it. But it hasn't gone away, because the spirit world doesn't forget. It waits. It watches. And when the time is right, it activates you. That activation can look like a breakdown, a betrayal, a loss, a miracle. It shakes your world so your soul can wake up. And when it does, you remember you were never just human. You are a bridge between realms, a guardian of truth, a carrier of codes, a warrior of the unseen. This path isn't easy. It's not glamorous. It won't always make sense, but it will make you real. It will strip away everything false. It will demand your whole heart, and in return, it will give you clarity, purpose, and access to realms most people only dream of. You'll see behind the veil. You'll speak with the unseen. You'll move through dimensions. but only if you're willing to surrender everything you thought you were in order to become who you really are. You will be tested. Not once, not twice, but constantly. Because the spirit realm doesn't care about your comfort, it cares about your capacity. Every challenge is a calibration. Every obstacle is initiation. Every heartbreak is a doorway. If you choose to walk through, you'll find strength you never knew you had. You'll discover a version of yourself that doesn't flinch in the face of darkness. Because you've learned to carry your own light. And that's what separates spirit realm warriors from everyone else. We don't wait for the world to change. We become the change. We don't ask for permission. We answer the call. We show up, even when it's hard. We fight battles the world can't see. And we do it not for glory, but for alignment, for truth, for legacy. For the unseen children of the future who will one day look back and say, because they rose, we could live free. You've probably asked yourself 1,000 times, why me? Why do you feel everything so intensely? Why is your path so full of breakdowns, breakthroughs, and moments that feel like spiritual whiplash? Why do you seem to carry burdens that aren't even yours? Pain passed down from people you've never met, emotions that come out of nowhere, and dreams that leave you shaken when you wake up? The answer isn't punishment. It's purpose. You were chosen not because you were the strongest, but because you had the capacity to become strong. You were chosen because your soul carries the blueprint of a warrior, one encoded not for comfort, but for transformation. People don't understand how battle-hardened the spirit realm warrior is. They see the calm. They see the smile. They see the healing hands and the compassionate eyes. But they don't see the nights you cried on the floor, begging for answers. They don't see the years you walked with invisible wounds, or how many times you almost gave up. Spirit warriors carry resilience in their bones. We don't get that from books or seminars. We earn it through experience. Through walking through the fire and trusting that something within us would survive. And the truth is, we didn't just survive, we were forged by it. When you're chosen for spiritual battle, your life no longer belongs to the matrix. You no longer move for validation. You no longer chase status. Your compass is internal. Your orders come from spirit. You start noticing that every time you try to play small and conform, something within you begins to die. Because you weren't designed to fit in. You were designed to activate, to disturb the slumber of the collective, to stand in places of darkness and remind people of their light. That's not a metaphor. That's your essence in action. That's why you've always felt called to truth, even when it was inconvenient. That's why you couldn't play along with the lie, even when it cost you everything. Let me ask you something truly deep. What is your soul willing to lose in order to become who it was meant to be? Are you willing to walk away from comfort, from certainty, from the illusion of safety? Are you willing to be misunderstood, rejected, even hated, if it means staying aligned with your truth? These are the real questions of the warrior path. Not how many followers you have, not how much you know, but how much you're willing to surrender. Because every warrior is called, but few are willing to answer when it requires the death of the ego. The battles you fight are not always external. Some of the most dangerous wars are fought in silence. The war between your higher self and your fear. The war between your purpose and your programming. the war between your calling and your conditioning. Spirit realm warriors are not free from darkness, we are intimate with it. We've danced with it. We've faced it inside ourselves. And because of that, we don't run from it in others. That's why people come to us when they're in pain. They sense that we've been there, that we carry keys not just because we studied the map, but because we've walked the terrain. And we've returned with wisdom, not wounds. One of the signs that you're a warrior is that you've always been a disruptor. You walk into a situation and things begin to shift. Not because you're trying to cause trouble, but because your energy carries truth. And truth is disruptive. It shakes illusions. It reveals shadows. It activates what's been sleeping. That's why you trigger people without saying a word. That's why some people love you instantly and others resist you without knowing why. Your energy speaks a language older than words. It reminds people of what they've forgotten, and not everyone is ready to remember. You may have felt like an outsider even in spiritual spaces, because your path isn't about aesthetics, it's about alignment. You've seen through the fluff. You've felt the difference between performance and presence. You're not here to play dress up with crystals and quotes. You're here to embody truth, to become a living transmission of divine frequency. And that means you've had to walk through layers of deception, both in the world and within yourself. You've had to unlearn so much just to hear your own soul again. But every step back to your essence has been worth it, because from that place your power is pure. You've also probably noticed that you're a natural protector. You feel a deep need to shield others, to defend the innocent, to call out injustice even when it's unpopular. That's not just personality, that's sacred purpose. Spirit warriors are guardians, not in the traditional sense, but in the energetic sense. We hold space. We transmute pain. We create safe containers for healing. We stand between worlds. And when we walk into rooms, we stabilize the frequency. Not because we want to be heroes, but because we cannot ignore what we've been built to do. But here's the paradox. The warrior must also learn to rest. We are not machines. We are not here to burn out in the name of service. That's been one of the hardest lessons. Because when you carry a sacred responsibility, it's easy to forget your own humanity. But your humanity is not a flaw. It's the canvas through which your divinity is expressed. You must learn to honor your limits, to protect your peace, to listen to your body. Because a burnt-out warrior is vulnerable to spiritual attack. Rest is a form of resistance. Rest is preparation. Rest is sacred. Have you ever had the experience of being called in a dream, of being in other realms, fighting or training or teaching? Have you woken up exhausted, like you've been working all night in places your waking mind can't recall? That's not imagination. That's memory. Spirit warriors don't clock out. We operate across dimensions. We are active in the dream field. We do work in altered states. And the more we awaken, the more we remember these missions. That's why sleep isn't always restful. That's why your dreams feel like more than just symbols, they feel like assignments. Another sign you're a spirit realm warrior is that you've experienced profound loss, not as punishment, but as purification. Spirit strips away everything that isn't aligned with your mission. It removes distractions. It cuts cords. It breaks attachments. Not because it wants you to suffer, but because it wants you to be free. Free to serve, free to see, free to hear the call without interference. And though the grief runs deep, so does the clarity that follows. You begin to see what matters. You begin to realize that everything you've lost was energy that couldn't go where you're going. You begin to trust the divine intelligence behind every ending. Let me ask you something that only a true warrior will understand. What if every hardship you faced was a seed of power planted in secret? What if nothing was wasted? What if the very thing that nearly destroyed you is the thing that will anoint you? Spirit doesn't waste pain. It recycles it into purpose. Every scar becomes a symbol. Every wound becomes a weapon of light. But only if you choose to alchemize it. Only if you stop running and start listening. What is your pain trying to teach you? What is your struggle trying to awaken in you? As your vibration rises, you'll start to see the threads. You'll connect the dots between your past and your purpose. You'll realize that the narcissistic parent, the betrayal, the abandonment, the illness, the trauma, all of it was training. Not because you deserved it, but because you were strong enough to transmute it. And when you do, you become a portal, a walking activation. People come into your field and they remember who they are. Not because you said the right thing, but because your energy is clean. Your frequency is clear. You've done the work. You've earned your sword. This path isn't for everyone. It's not supposed to be. But if you've made it this far, then something in you already knows. You know that your life hasn't been random. You know that your gifts are real. You know that your presence matters. And you know that you didn't come here to live a safe, small, scripted life. You came here to shift timelines, to rewrite codes, to anchor light in places abandoned by hope. That's not ego. That's destiny. And it's time you stop running from it. There comes a point in the warrior's journey when silence becomes your teacher. Not just outer silence, but the inner stillness that emerges after the storm. You've survived the chaos, you've walked through the fire, and now something inside you has changed. You're no longer just reacting to life, you're responding to it with intention. The war didn't end, but you stopped trying to fight it from the outside. You began to realize that the real battlefield was always within. Your thoughts, your beliefs, your vibration, these are the true weapons. And only when you master the inner realm can you become a true force in the outer one. One of the most sacred signs that you're a spirit realm warrior is that you begin to feel peace in places that used to trigger you. The same situations that once threw you into chaos now barely stir your energy. That's not apathy, it's elevation. You've raised your frequency to a level where lower energies can't hook into you anymore. That's spiritual mastery. It's not about floating above pain, it's about walking through it without losing your center. You've stopped trying to control everything and started trusting the flow. You've learned that sometimes the most powerful move is stillness. Sometimes the loudest roar is quiet presence. Have you noticed how your sensitivity has become a strength? What once felt like a curse is now your compass. You can feel the energy of a room before you enter it. You sense truth beneath words. You read people's intentions without needing them to speak. That's not paranoia, it's perception. You're tuning into the language of the spirit realm. And as you refine that perception, You stop wasting time. You stop explaining yourself to those who can't hear you. You stop negotiating your value because you finally know who you are. And when you know who you are, you move through life differently. You become unshakable. Let me ask you something that most people never dare to ask themselves. What if your very presence is the medicine? What if you don't need to do anything to make an impact? What if just being in alignment is enough to shift the vibration of every space you enter? Warriors of the spirit realm don't always speak. Sometimes they just stand. They stand with clarity, with compassion, with unwavering conviction. And that energy alone is a disruption to darkness. You don't need the spotlight. You are the light. And you've learned that power is not about dominance, it's about resonance. As you rise, you begin to attract new allies, people who speak your soul's language, people who feel like home. These are your spiritual family, not connected by blood, but by frequency. You recognize each other instantly, like stars that remember being part of the same constellation. These connections feel ancient. They activate you. They remind you of why you came. And together you begin to build the new world, not by force, but by frequency, not by preaching, but by embodying. You become living examples of what's possible when spirit leads. But even as you rise, the tests don't stop. In fact, they often intensify, because the higher you climb, the more refined your energy must become. Every new level requires a deeper letting go, more humility, more trust, more surrender. The ego doesn't like this. It wants to arrive. It wants to be done. But the warrior knows this path is never done. It's a spiral, not a straight line. You revisit old lessons at higher levels. You shed layers you didn't even know existed. And each time you do, you become more radiant, more crystalline, more aligned with your divine blueprint. You've probably started noticing that your intuition is no longer just a whisper, it's a command. You don't just feel nudges, you receive downloads. You don't just hope you know. This knowing doesn't come from logic. It comes from alignment. And when you act on it, the universe moves with you. Doors open. Synchronicities multiply. Time bends. Because you're no longer swimming against the current, you've become the current. You've merged with your mission. And now, everything you touch becomes infused with that energy. But here's the thing that most people don't understand. The warrior's path is not about being perfect. It's about being real. You still feel fear, but you don't let it lead. You still feel pain, but you don't get stuck in it. You still fall, but you rise faster. Because the battle taught you something most people never learn. You are not your emotions. You are the awareness behind them. And that awareness is indestructible. It's eternal. It's divine. That's the part of you that the darkness can never touch. That's the part of you that remembers the mission, even when your mind forgets. Let me ask you something radical. What would your life look like if you stopped trying to survive and started choosing to serve? Not from obligation, but from overflow. Not because you're trying to save the world, but because you are the world awakening itself. Spirit realm warriors don't operate from scarcity. We operate from sovereignty. We don't wait for someone to give us permission. We create space. We hold space. We are the space. And from that space, miracles happen. You begin to realize that you're not just here to heal yourself, you're here to shift the collective. Your healing becomes a portal. Your courage becomes a catalyst. Your authenticity becomes an invitation. And suddenly, people around you start waking up. Not because you tried to change them, but because you changed yourself. That's the secret most people miss. Transformation is contagious. Your vibration speaks louder than your voice. Your alignment is your activism. Your presence is your protest. You don't fight the old, you embody the new. And the old begins to collapse in your wake. You've also probably started to feel a new kind of guidance. It's not just intuition anymore, it's orchestration. You're being moved, positioned, prepared. Spirit is placing you exactly where you need to be. Sometimes that means isolation. Sometimes it means elevation. Always, it means alignment. You may not understand it in the moment, but later you'll look back and see the perfection in every step, every delay, every detour, every heartbreak. It all served the mission. It all shaped the warrior. Let me leave you with this. There is no greater honor than to be chosen for battle in the spirit realm. It means the divine trusts you. It means your soul has been tested and found worthy. It means you carry something that this world desperately needs. Not everyone will see it. Not everyone will value it. But that doesn't diminish its truth. You didn't come here to convince the world, you came here to change it. And you're doing that every day simply by being who you are. So if you've been feeling lost, misunderstood, too intense, too deep, too much, know this: you're not broken. You're being built. You're not cursed. You're being called. And if the darkness has been trying to silence you, it's because your light is too loud. You were never meant for the sidelines. You were meant for the front lines. And now it's time. Time to rise. Time to remember. Time to return to the battlefield, not with fear, but with fire. Because you, my friend, are a spirit realm warrior. And your mission has only just begun. Now go. The realm is waiting.